Hi everyone, welcome to Stationeers. I want to quickly go over some simple solar tracking, one direction solar tracking. The sun has just risen now, as you can see it's working its way up the sky. Now this is Venus, the solar angle is 0, which means there's no horizontal angle, it just goes directly overhead. Knowing where the sun comes up is important in this game. It's coming up at a bearing of 90 degrees. You can see right there, 90 degrees. And it goes all the way over and it sets at 270 degrees over in that direction somewhere. So that's the first thing you need to know when you're setting up solar panels. Okay, now I'm going to get our solar panel. This is a solar panel, kit solar panel. And let's plonk a couple of these guys down. I've already got some cables in place. Now we want, see I've got two types of cables, the heavy and the non-heavy. You want the power, it happens a lot on Venus, you want the power to be going into the heavy ones and the data going into the non-heavy. I mean, you can do it all with heavy, that's fine. And if you're not planning on having many of these things, you might even be able to do it to non-heavy. Okay, you need glass to finish them off, and now these solar panels are actually producing power. And they're actually sticking them into these power cables here, which as you can see I've got connected to nothing. So that's where a power controller comes in. Yeah, or you could send it straight into a battery, which I'll demonstrate a bit later. Okay, we get this power controller on in there, we stick a battery in, let's stick my life support battery in there, and that will slowly charge up. So it's at 71 when I put it in, now it's at 72, it's slowly charging it. Now these solar panels, as you can see, it has an efficiency 48%, 49%. That's because the sun, they're pointing straight up. They're only going to be efficient with the sun directly above them. You can manually change these. I can tilt these things around, so I can tilt it like this, and now the efficiency is 82%. I can tilt it a little bit more, 96%. So at that angle, I've almost got perfect. Oh, it's now getting less and less. You could sit here if you wanted to and slowly tilt these up over and over again to try and keep that efficiency at 95% or try and keep it close to 100. But of course, I'm on Venus right now. My oxygen is flying down. My waste tank is filling up like crazy. I'm going to change that right now. And yeah, you can't sit here doing this sort of stuff. You could actually you could connect it to a computer and control them in your base somewhere. But however, we're going to automate this whole process. So you don't have to touch them and they just track the sun for you automatically. Now when placing solar panels, it's important to, what I like to do anyway, is the first thing I do is I get the vertical to 0%. So I move this, at 0% the solar panel's pointing that way. That's no good. I want at 0% the solar panel to be facing sunrise. So I'm going to get my wrench out and I'm going to rotate this around. Okay, let's go this way, because I'm going to get blocked otherwise. It should be 180 degrees. Oh, well, that's too far, because they're starting at 0, and let's see where this one tilts to. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, so I need to get this to 180 degrees. Depending on which way you place it, which way your cables go and everything, it'll be different every time. So 180 degrees, there we go. Now it's facing sunset. Well, this is actually now giving me 0% efficiency. I have to tilt them up somehow. Let's see if we can get them to automatically tilt up. Now, whoops, I shouldn't put that away just yet. When you're rotating them, it rotates around like 360 degrees. So horizontal is in degrees. The vertical, however, is a percentage. So 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, at 50%, you're straight up. That's 50%. Now if you keep going, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then 100. Okay, and then you can't go past 100 and you can't go less than 0. So this actually presents a massive problem for us, because the sun, the angle of the sun is in degrees. And what we need to do to measure that is we need one of these guys, a kit sensors. So I'm going to put this down and I'm going to have it facing sunrise. I've already got that set up. Now if I hover over this, it tells us the vertical angle of the sun is now 112 degrees. So that was 0, straight up was 90, and now it's gone past the 90, it's now at 112. Actually, it's 114 now. So you might think, well, we'll just feed this information straight into the panels, right? Well, not quite, because if we fed this information, the panels would currently be trying to get to 118%. Unfortunately, we have to convert this degrees into percent. Luckily, converting degrees into percent is, converting 180 degrees into percent is actually really, really easy. If at 180, we want it to be exactly 100. So what do you do to 180 to turn it into 100? Well, yeah, you can subtract 80, but that's not what we want to do. We want to divide. What do we divide 180 by to get 100? We divide it by 1.8. And now, just to double check that this is right, when the sun's at 90 degrees, we want the solar panel to say 50%. Now, how do we turn 90 into 50? Well, 90 divided by 1.8 is 50. So that seems to work. Well, let's try this out and see what happens. So what we need first is a logic input-output. We want a logic reader. So that's a logic I/O. A logic reader to read the information from this daylight sensor. And now we're going to want a writer to write the information to the solar panels. A logic writer will only write to one solar panel. We want a batch writer to write to all the solar panels. I'm just fill that round so all the holes filled up. I've already done all the cabling. Normally you would put these down first and then you would hook the cables up to them. But as you can see, there's more things that are going to come here pretty soon because it's not so simple as you might think. Now, if we just write that information straight to there, it's going to be wrong because the sun's currently at 146 degrees and this can't go past 100%. But we've already worked out we want that divide. Now we want a logic processor for the divide. And what we want to do with this process is we want to use our mouse wheel until we get logic math. So there's a few things here that you can do, min, max, compare, logic math. And we're just going to do this, logic math. Okay, really simple. Now, what we can do right now is we can take the information from the logic reader. We can use this logic math to divide by 1.8 and send it to the batch writer. But where are we going to get this 1.8 from? Well, what we need there is a logic memory. Logic memory is used for values that are fixed, that aren't changing, and that 1.8 is not going to change. So what we're going to do is we go to our logic reader. We want the input to be the the daylight sensor. The daylight sensor is our input, and we want the variable to be not horizontal but vertical. The horizontal angle just stays the same the whole time, 0 degrees. It's the vertical angle that's changing. Now this math unit is going to take that information from the logic reader. So we find the logic reader, and we're going to divide that by, there we go, divide by, and we want to divide it by the logic memory. Now the memory needs to be set to 1.8. Now we can't actually do that with our, we can't get decimal points just using our screwdriver, so we're going to have to use our labeler for that. So we'll pull out our labeler and we'll set that to 1.8. And there we go. Now, so what's happening here is this is taking the information. Oh, it's not hooked up to power because I haven't turned this on. Oops. Okay, if I turn this on, this will tell us the vertical angle. It's taking the vertical angle. It's almost set. Vertical angle is at 180. It's setting right now. It's already set, actually. What happens is once the sun goes past the horizon, it then starts ticking down 179, 178, 176 until it gets all the way back to the start, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then it rises, and then it counts up, and then it starts counting back up again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 180. So that's how this daylight sensor reads the sun when it's pointing sunrise. Okay, so it's gone below the horizon now. It's okay, we've got a ton of stuff to do. Math unit.
Waste tank, caution.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of others all ready to go. I figured they'd fill up by the time I finished explaining this. Okay, our logic reader divided by our logic memory. Our logic memory is 1.8. Now, what we'll do is we'll get our screwdriver and we will say, what do we want the input to be? We want the input to be this math unit. We don't want it to be the logic reader. We want it to actually be what the calculation done by the math unit.
Caution.
What's that? Hunger. Oh, yeah. So we want the information from the logic math, which is now spitting out a value of 88. It's telling our solar panels 88%, please, 87%, please. And we want to write it to the solar panels. Now, solar panel joule, because it's a batch writer, it'll write it to every solar panel joule. So every one of these will get the information. And we want the variable to be the vertical. because we're writing it to the vertical setting. And then when we turn this on, this will actually start tracking the sun. It's actually going to flip all the way around to an angle of 82 degrees. Okay, so this is actually set up and it's tracking the sun, but it's not tracking it perfectly. Now, before I explain that and set it up correctly so it perfectly tracks the sun, just to tell you some of the things that I actually like to do when I'm setting up these things. I find, particularly on planets like Europa, where it's really cold, this battery cell might not last the entire night. It might go dead, and then your tracking will stop, and then if your tracking stops, you're not getting more power to fill it back up again. So just as a safeguard, this is not necessary on most worlds, but I like to do it anyway. As a safeguard, I like to put a battery in place. Now, for something like this, yeah, for something like this, just a normal kit battery will do. And what you do is you have the power. Oh, that lady, she doesn't stop talking. Okay, I'm going to grab some more of these things. I kind of want to leave my inventory. I don't want them to explode on the ground, just so that we're not disturbed again. Okay, where were we? Okay, so this thing is tracking the sun. Even though the sun is below the Earth, it's setting its percentage, 70%, based on this calculation. It takes the logic reader information, it divides it by 1.8, so it's converting that 180 degree angle into a percentage. Now, as I was saying, I like to put a battery here. Don't forget to turn the battery on. There we go, battery is on. And as this collects power, when this thing is full, and it will get full during the day, all the excess goes into the battery. And then at night, as this gets drained, the battery will slowly fill it up as it gets drained. It's just an added safeguard, added precaution in case my solar tracking stops working for some reason. Now, one thing I wanted to demonstrate, but I didn't get time, or I forgot, one of the two, was that if you have these panels lined in a line like this vertically, this panel will actually block that panel. So this panel was probably getting like 80% efficiency, while this one was only getting like 40% efficiency, because only the very top of the panel was getting the sun. So you got to be, when you're first setting these things up, oh my god, how many more warnings am I going to get? Okay, when you're first setting these up, make sure you look at the sun. What's the sun doing? It's going up across the sky like this. If we have the solar panels like this one's going to block this one in the morning, and this one's going to block that one in the afternoon. What you want to do with your solar panels is you want to have them you want to have them spaced out. We'll just chuck this down here. You want to have them spaced out so they don't block each other. So just having them spaced out perpendicular to the sun, and I'll put the power there and this one here, like this, side by side, would be far better. I'm actually going to rip the other one up as well, just so they're arranged the same way. Chuck this down here. I'm going to use you in a second, Glass, don't you worry. And this way your solar panels won't get in the way of each other. So I want to, yep, that's perfect. I'm going to rip up some of these cables and get these all hooked up. So this is the data, the green is the data. Oh, whoops, did I run out of cables? I got tons here, it's okay. Also, I can steal one from here if I want to. Okay, so now these won't block each other. I didn't get to demonstrate it, but I'm sure you can all understand. It's a very simple principle. Solar panels in the way of each other. And I want the power, I want to connect the power up to there. There we go. So that's connected, that's connected. I don't need this little piece here. And I don't need this little piece here. So that can just be straight cable. Okay, so we've got the power going into my battery, which is going into my power controller. Like I said, the battery's not needed. You can just have it running straight into the power controller. The data is running on this line. I've connected up the two data ports, and that's all connected to the output of this power controller. Okay, as you can see, there's some extra things that are going to be placed there. And these things, as you can see, they're not working like they're supposed to be working. Well, firstly, they got no glass on them, so we'll fix that first. But they seem to be tracking in this direction. That's because I didn't get my wrench out and make it so that 0 degrees was at sunrise. What are we going? So I can kind of figure out where it's going to be. It's going to be a 90-degree angle. You can actually change these. I'm fighting against the automation right now. But yeah, you can see it's going to face sunrise. So that's where I want it, 90 degrees. It's going to be a different value depending on how you arrange these at the start. So there's no fixed rule. Some people like to have the data at the front, some have the data at the back, some like to have them in weird directions or staggered, depending on what planet you are on and, I don't know, what your situation is. How did heavy cables end up in there? Let's get rid of that. Okay, so these things are just waiting for the sun to rise. Now, they're not going to be perfectly efficient, and I'll try and explain why. What happens is these things are locked at 0%, not with the horizon, but 15 degrees above the horizon. You see, these solar panels start, we'll get to 100%. If I lock them at 0, they won't hit 100% efficiency until the sun is at 15 degrees. The first 15 degrees, after the first 15 degrees is hit, that's our 0% for the solar panels. Okay, and then it goes over the sky, and the last 15 degrees, from 165 to 180, they don't count either. At 165 degrees sun, that's when our solar panels want to be at 100%. So the first 15 and the last 15 are chopped off. The solar panels just don't rotate that far vertically. Okay, so that presents a problem. If we're at the moment, we've got it set up for a 180 degree.
Waste tank, caution.
This happens a lot on Venus. So we're basically converting that 180 degrees into percentage, and that's not going to give us perfect tracking. In the morning, we'll have like a 300 and we won't be getting 500 watts from these things. We'll be getting like 300 watts from them. And then it'll get better and better. Right at midday, we'll get the full 500 watts. And then they'll become less efficient and give us 400 watts, 300 watts, maybe even 250 watts at sunset or something like that. So the sun's rising now, and you'll see we won't get the full efficiency. And I'll try it. So what we need to do is we need to create a setup that allows us to chop off the first 15 and the last 15. And this is actually really, really easy to do. We're going to want another memory right there, and we're going to want another math processor, logic math. Okay, now I'm going to not set these up just yet. I'm going to do some naming though. And this is important to name your devices. We now have 2 math units and 2 memory units on this, and being able to select this and find which one we want is very important. I'm going to call this logic memory 1.5, and I'll explain this number why in a minute. I'm going to call this logic memory 15, and I'm going to explain this number very, very soon. We're just going to demonstrate the inefficiency of the current system. Logic reader can stay logic reader, batch writer can stay batch writer. I'm going to call this top one logic math subtract, and you'll understand why very soon. And I'm going to call this one logic math divide. We're going to be doing a subtraction and a division, and we want 2 fixed values. Divide. There we go. Okay, I haven't actually set any values or anything yet. We're just looking at what is the efficiency of these solar panels in the morning. Okay, so the sun has risen. You look at the daylight sensor. It's now at 40-degree angle. It's about to be 44 degree. Now it's at 5-degree angle. You might think these things will be generating a lot of power. No, they're at 77% efficiency. 385 watts. So they will get more and more efficient as the sun rises higher and higher, and they'll be 100% at midday, and then they'll go down in efficiency. So what this very simple setup, ignoring those 2 chips I just put in, 1, 2, 3, 4 chips, a reader, a math, a memory, and a batch writer, gets you like okay solar tracking. Kind of close to correct, but not correct, because your efficiency starts off at 75% and gets to 100%, then goes back down to 75%. But we want 100% all the time. And with just 2 more chips, an extra math and an extra memory, we can do this. Now, so you can see 81%. It's just going to slowly get better and better. Now, let's see what happens. We want to chop off the first 15 and the last 15. And so that's 30 degrees chopped off. Now, so instead of tracking 180 degrees, the solar panels actually track 150 degrees. From 15 to 165, that 150 degrees, that's how the solar panels track. So what we want to do is we want to convert that 150 degrees into a percentage. Well, to turn 150 into 100, you divide by 1.5. So we're going to be using the value 1.5. And I'm going to set this memory to 1.5. Now, we can't just use that value straight away. There's a problem. Before we get to that, I'm going to... Yeah, no, I'm not. Okay, so here's what do we want to have happen here. We want, instead of... We want 15 degrees to be our solar panel 0. Well, how do we turn 15 into 0? We subtract 15. We want 180 to be 160. We want that 165 degrees to be 150. So how do we do that? We subtract 15. So we want actually this memory to be 15. So I'm going to turn off all these chips now and stop our tracking, and I'll try and explain this sequentially, explain what happens. This is going to be our logic math subtract. I've already made it. This is our logic memory 15. I'm going to be subtracting 15. And then once I do that, I'm then going to be dividing by 1.5. And you'll see how, hopefully you'll all understand how this works. Let's go. So we want logic reader in, daylight sensor, variable vertical. Okay, we want to take the information from that logic reader, and we want to not divide, but this time we want to subtract. And we want to subtract 15, the logic memory 15. I haven't actually set that value yet. It's still set at 1.8, 15. There we go. Our logic memory 15 says 15. Our logic memory 1.5 says 1.5. Okay, so where were we? You did that? Okay. So logic reader, subtract 15. Okay, so if we put this in, it gives us a vertical angle of 64. If we, I know I'm dying of thirst, don't worry about it. And if we look at this, it's saying 25.17. Whatever value this is, if we turn it on, it'll just give us that same value, take 15. So that says almost 70, and this says almost 55. Perfect, it's working. Now we want to take this information here, and we're going to use that logic math subtract, this thing here, that information, and we're going to just divide that by 1.5. Divide by 1.5, logic memory 1.5. Okay, so what it's doing here is this is reading this, it's taking away 15 and then dividing that value by 1.5. These memories don't need to touch. Okay, so the input now is going to be the logic math divide. Oh, whoops, I had it right. Okay, the output's going to be the solar panel and the variable is going to be vertical. When I turn this on, we should get perfect solar tracking. So the vertical angle right now is at 84 degrees, 85 degrees, and our panels are giving us 100% efficiency, just like that. So, waste tank caution. I'll also get rid of that annoying panting sound. So effectively what's happening here with these solar panels, with this whole setup, is the daylight center is giving us a vertical angle. We're lopping 15 off that vertical angle so that 15 is our new 0. And then whatever value it says, whatever value we get after that, we're just dividing it by 1.5 to turn that 150 degree arc instead into a 100 degree arc. Or think about it this way. If we divide by 1.5, every 1.5 of angle that goes up becomes a value of 1. So 1.5 is 1. Then 3 is 2. 4.5 is 3, and so on and so on. And we're taking that 150 and we're splitting it up into 100 different bits, 100 percentage points as such. And that's what dividing by 1.5 is. So we slop off 15. So our 0 will start at 15. And we're just basically moving up 1% for every 1.5 that the sun goes up. So when the sun finally gets to 165, which is 15 plus 150, that's when our percentage of our solar panels will get to 100. I hope I've explained that well enough. It's those people who already understand angles, fractions, and division and percentages, that should hopefully be very easy to follow. So yeah, we're just doing two operations here, a subtraction and a division. And that's giving us our perfect or almost perfect, 100%. The reason it's not perfect, many of you will find it's not perfect like me, as if your processor isn't like the fastest thing on the planet. There's going to be a bit of a time delay, a time lag between this information getting to the panels and the panels updating. You can actually work around that a bit, and this is what I like to do with my solar tracking. This was actually a suggestion made by someone in the comments on one of my playthroughs. Thank you, Mike Bell. That was amazing. I can actually just take this value and I can just drop it a little bit. And I've experimented a bit. For me, I think 14.6, I believe, is best for my CPU. And this will give us 100% efficiency, or close to it. It'll go between 99 and 100. So I'm taking that 15-degree angle and I'm not lopping 15 off of it. I'm lopping 14.6. So yeah, and that actually just works for me. So basically our zero is set at 14.6, not at 15. And this just gives me either 99 or 100 all the time. So if you've got a slower CPU that can't handle the game updating and you find that these things are never at 100, and they're always sitting at 98, 99, you can just, instead of start your 0 point, instead of starting it at 15, start it a little bit earlier, 14.5, 14.8, depending on your CPU. Okay, everyone. That's just about it for now. You can see these panels are not getting in the way of each other. They're giving me fantastic power generation, which is going into here. This battery is now, during the night, when it's not getting power, it's going to power the circuit and keep these tracking. So in the morning, these things will be in position, ready to go and track the sun all the way through the day. Okay, I hope people found this tutorial useful, and yeah, if people like it, I'll do some more tutorial videos in the future. Okay, everyone, thanks for that. Hope you tune in for more of my videos later on. Bye for now.